actually received 20. 16 for headbutting the umpire and 4 for striking Gary Sidebottom.
How many games were we into the season?
I think we were only 4.
So you missed all the season?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, missed all the season. Oh, well.
So when you look back and see that incident now, what does Phil Carman say?
Yeah, well, I've always been of the belief that the umpire was really the aggressor on the day. I hit Sidebottom knowing full well that the umpire wasn't watching. He was looking further down the field. And obviously the senior umpire ran in to report me, and I accepted that because I didn't see him behind me. But when the boundary umpire came up to say he was reporting me, I said, well, what for? And knowing full well that he didn't see the incident. And he couldn't give me an answer, Kevin. He couldn't say for striking or whatever.
Yeah.
And it went on for quite some time, and he was actually chesting me. I just stood my ground, and in hindsight, I should have taken a step back, but I just stood there and said, well, look, why am I being reported? And then, for some reason or other, whether it was something in his eye or whatever, I just sort of put my head down and made contact with him, and that was it.
Did you break his nose?
No, look, it was something I had never done before anyway in that sort of motion, and no, it wasn't a vicious contact at all. He made it appear as though it was fairly strong, but
it was in your face, Phil. It was right in your face.
You can't condone it. You can't
saw
condone it.
that.
But
He's
gee, I've
right
never
here.
seen an umpire be up
That
like
close.
that.
About an inch between both.
Now they tell you to run. They tell the umpires to run away and report you from 10 yards, which is the best way of doing it. But you can't condone it, of course.
Have you ever spoken to him since? Have you ever seen him since? Or
I saw he continued umpiring the year after, and I did see him. I think we played a game in Sydney, and I saw him, but certainly don't have any contact with him, Bob, no. Not today.
Does it concern you at all, Phil, that, I mean, when you burst onto the scene in 1975 with the white boots, I mean, you were an absolute superstar of the competition. Does it disappoint you that when people talk about Phil Carman, they talk about, 1, missing the grand final, 2, of course, headbutting Graham Carberry, and somehow lose the fact that, this guy once kicked 11 goals in a half or in a game against St Kilda at Moorabbin, should have won the Brownlow medal, finished 3rd, missed 9 games with a broken foot. Does that worry you or concern you that people overlook?
Well, it doesn't now, because obviously you've mentioned a number of things, and people, I think, have come to the realisation, well, look, he could play the game as well as being controversial. So, look, it's obviously something that happened, and I've had to accept it over the years. I've obviously been canned a fair bit for it, but that's part of the game, and still things like that, probably not as bad, but it's still happening to young players today.
Phil, you're absolute brilliant player, as Kev said. Only played 100 games.
101.
Is there any reason why didn't you play a lot more football? Because as we all know, you're absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I only played 101 VFL games.
You started late though, didn't you?
Yeah,
At 24.
Came over at the age of 25, but I went to Norwood as a 17-year-old, and I actually only played 57 games in something like 6 or 7 years there, because I was granted a permit from the Australian National Football Council to play when Collingwood wouldn't clear me in the good old zoning days. I played 10 games that year. I had my permit revoked and had to stand out for the remainder of that season and all of next. So, I've played 158 games of football over many, many years. So, yeah, it's not a lot of footy, is it?
KB, I would have to say, and how many years is it since you've been retired now? Probably 20-odd?
Oh, good 20.
Close to 20.
20 years, yeah.
He could play today's football better than
superstar.
anybody that I've seen.
Superstar.
When I first started and I played 1 year with Phil, he 6'4", could run athletically, he was quick, stamina, kick. You talk about kick both feet like Bobby Skilton, this bloke could do it. I remember I had to catch the red rattler down the Moorabbin. That game you talked about when I think it was Georgie Young was at full forward for St Kilda, Phil was at centre half forward for Collingwood. Georgie Young kicked 9 at full forward for St Kilda, and I watched this because I played in the reserves, came out. This bloke kicked 11 at centre half forward in the same game.
That was only before half time.
Phil, take us through some of these games and some of this play. I mean, obviously you love to run with the ball. You had a great reputation of being super fit and maybe fitter than most people playing the game in those days.
You're like, look, obviously played state game against a Victoria on a few occasions for South Australia. Realised then that, obviously you needed to be super fit, but in actual fact, Kevin, when I got here, I was a little bit disappointed with the fitness and professionalism of particularly Collingwood at that stage. So it was a disappointment. Obviously things have things have changed a great deal now, and it's a real professional sport. But back in those days, it was a huge disappointment to me coming across and the standard that we were playing.
Who coached you at Norwood?
I had Robert Odie as a coach for 2 or 3 years, and also Bob Hammond.
Yeah.
Have a look at this.
He run around blokes.
Look
He's
at this.
unbelievable. He just runs around and has about 10 bounces.
He's a bit like KB. He didn't always want to give the handball, but he gave it out then.
He gave short
handballs.
handballs.
Yeah, but he had 6 blokes hanging off him,
They
KB.
couldn't catch him.
Tell us about the white boots. How did the white boots come about? Because, I mean, if anyone knows anything about Phil Carman, it's Phil Carman turning up with the white boots.
Yes, well, I'd been having discussions with both Puma and Adidas, and one training night on a Thursday night, I was sitting there training or getting changed for training, and Maury Plant, who was involved with
Athletics,
Adidas then and athletics, he came in and showed me these, or a box of white boots, and said, you know, I'd like you to try these. And I said, you're kidding. I said, no way, no. But then he passed me an envelope and had a cheque with it, so I thought, well...
You're not kidding.
I think I can try after all.
I think that's worth it. So, Kevin, yeah, it was a few $1,000s, and I wore those. And in
Did
actual
the club
fact, though,
know? Did the club know you're going to wear them on
no
Saturday?
idea. No, I had no idea. But they were probably the most comfortable boot that I actually worn. So,
Were you truly professional when you came over, Phil? You only played football at that stage?
yeah, well, yes, I was. I sort of did a few part-time jobs, but I concentrated on my footy, and I sort of trained in the morning, got down there in the afternoon and trained with the lads at night.
What do your teammates think, Phil, of the white boots? Give a bit of a stir from the boys?
Yeah, most certainly. There was, yeah.
Any stand out?
No, nothing really, but in the end, a number of other players started
You didn't have to
wearing them.
tear bits off the cheque and give it to them, really. No?
You know that Phil, sometimes you didn't know what Phil was going to do next, but we knew every Sunday we had these rehab sessions, and he had this dog. Have you still got it? You wouldn't
No,
know.
I haven't. No, he died.
He had this dog. It was like Beethoven and Cujo, all
dog,
rolled into
yeah,
one.
big fella.
And we used to run laps, and I was never more scared on a footy field than having this dog with dribble coming from its mouth, chasing everybody around. And Phil would just be bouncing the ball around, and we would be really just that scared of this dog every Sunday morning.
In actual fact, I used to run with him all the time, and one Friday
He
night...
had
I
an
was-
unusual name, didn't he?
PJ, his name was. But I was running around the park with him one Friday night, and he hit me, knocked me over, because he's 16 stone. A big, massive
That's why we were scared.
I injured my ankle, and I couldn't play the next day, so it was a good day.
Phil, why did you leave Collingwood? What happened? I mean, you only played 60-odd games at the Magpies.
Yeah, well, obviously I had been in 1977 with the Tuck incident. I missed
The
the
preliminary final.
the grand final, and the drawn the drawn grand final, the consequent replay, and Tommy wasn't
Happy
too
with
happy.
you?
Wasn't too happy with me. So the following year, I didn't have that wonderful year, I don't think, and the Kangaroos or North Melbourne then beat us in the preliminary final at Waverley, and I read then in the paper on the Monday or Tuesday that I, along with several other sort of key Collingwood players, wouldn't be back there next year. So
What about the grand final? A lot of people say Phil Carman plays, you win the 77 grand final, and I probably believe that too, because you average 4 to 5 goals. But to live with that, do you cope with that very well, or you find it hard to cope with people saying that all?
Just watching any grand final now and seeing the reaction from the players and the crowd and the camaraderie amongst the guys that have actually won them, it would have been marvellous to have played in it. I know now, and I think even though you think you get bigger or better as you get older, I know then that I would have been a difference between the two sides
no
on
doubt.
that particular
Well,
day.
didn't you average about 5 or 6 goals against the Kangaroos at that particular point of time?
Yeah.
You had a
I
great
found them
record against them.
I found them a fairly comfortable side to play against, and no disrespect to Steve and Nick, but I would have been playing against Stephen, who was a centre half back, and
he was a small centre half
yeah,
back
he
too,
wasn't
wasn't he,
tall,
Stephen? Yeah.
quick, and so I was able to run a little bit more, and yeah, it was just unfortunate because in the incident that we hit Tucky, I kicked the first 2 goals in the first few minutes of the second semi-final against Hawthorn, and I contested a ball at centre half forward against Tucky, and the adrenaline's still pumping. You know, it's been involved in the first 5 or 6 minutes of the game, and the ball was knocked 20 or 30 yards away from me. I chased the ball down the ground and saw a Hawthorn player come in at me, and I just sort of jumped into him, and as a result, I was
got 2
suspended for
weeks.
those 2
Did
years.
you actually go to the grand final?
I did. I went and I sat on the bench and watched the first one, and I actually trained with the players that week. But I just sat in the grandstand for the replay. And,
What went through your mind when the first grand final was a drawn grand final?
well, I thought that I was a chance to actually play in the replay because at the tribunal they said that I would be suspended for one match this year and one the following year. So I thought, well, I'm a chance. So I went along to the tribunal, and I was sitting in. There were a lot of reporters there for that evening, and I recall sort of going into a room to keep away from them. And one of the tribunal members came past, and he didn't see me there, and I heard him say to the others, he said, "You're not going to let Carman get away with this, are you?" And I nearly got up and said, "Well, you can't do that," but I just sort of sat there, and I knew then that it was all over. I wouldn't be part of it.
You had 4 clubs,
Yes.
you know, which was unusual then, really, wasn't it? You're probably the first one to jump 4 clubs anyway. Was there any great differences in the 4 clubs, Phil?
Oh, Collingwood were absolutely sensational, just on the ground and socially. There was always a real atmosphere there. You know, after the games at the social club, the place was packed and, you know, people would be about. Melbourne, when I went there, did not have a social club at all, and there was nowhere to sort of go and mix after the games. I then went to Essendon, and they were a little bit better, and the Kangaroos were much the same as Essendon, but Collingwood far superior in that.
When you look back on your career now, and there is no doubt that, you know, created tremendous football
Controversy?
yeah, wherever he went, and you to go back to South Australia and to be, how long did you keep on playing, and how long could you have really played in Melbourne, do you think?
Oh, I finished in Melbourne at the age of 32.
At 32?
And, you know, I realised then that...
It was getting past you?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think that I could have probably played further for a longer period of time, but as Kevin continually mentions that word controversy, I know in my last game I was reported in a final, and I just sort of had enough, I think, and I thought, well, let's get out and do something else.
Where'd you go, Phil? Where'd you go after the...
I went coaching.
Just didn't play? Did you play as well?
Oh, playing coach.
Right around the country. I mean, you were up at Benalla, weren't you? And also...
Well, I went to Canberra for 2 years, Kevin.
East Lakes?
It was East Lake, and I played in 2 grand finals. I should say I coached them to 2 grand finals, and you wouldn't guess what.
Won both.
I missed both through suspension.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I don't think many people would know that.
No.
I missed both games. Yeah, I was suspended for both.
Did you
games.
win?
And in fact, Phil...
No, we didn't. We came runners-up each year.
In fact, Phil, after you got the 20 weeks after that, you know, the headbutting of Graham Carberry, am I correct in thinking that you got reported in the first game back after a 20-week suspension?
I went, actually, it was for a state game. I think I represented South Australia when there was a sort of those carnival things were right still. Yes, and I got reported for something, yeah. I got off it, but, I think at that stage, obviously...
The umpires had it in for you, didn't they?
targeted.
You're a ball player, Phil. That's the thing I remember you so much.
Because you couldn't do anything, and
whiz.
you know, those days, Kevin, I was a forward, and you were obviously headhunted a great deal, and at times we would react, and it's always the guy that reacted was the one that sort of got into trouble.
When you were down as a little boy, it was at Edenhope.
Correct?
Edenhope. Were you the superstar of Edenhope?
No, not at all, Bob. No, there were other young boys with probably a little bit more ability, but I know that they didn't have the dedication and probably the desire to achieve what I wanted to do, and so I went.
Did you want to play in Victoria, or did you want to play in South Australia?
Oh, I most definitely wanted to play in Victoria, but I came across to Melbourne as a 15, 16-year-old, and I was put up at the Victoria Hotel for a fortnight, had to sort of taxi it down to Victoria Park, and I just didn't feel part of it, and it was just a bit too big for me.
Yeah.
So I went back to Edenhope, eventually asked to go across to Adelaide, and having never been there before, I decided that that's where I go.
Phil, what about Tommy Hafey? KB's been coached by Tommy Hafey, very close to him. I've been coached by him, and I say he's the man who set my career on its journey. What about yourself? How did you find Tommy? And you mentioned discipline and maybe lack of it at Collingwood at times. Was your professionalism before its time?
Yes, I think so. But he was incredible because we finished the bottom.
Yeah.
And then Tommy came in
76.
We played in the grand final.
That's right.
So he was marvellous. But obviously, I had a routine where I started to do things wrong, and with Tommy, even with Tommy being there, I still did a few wrong things and upset him.
Like the thing about, Tommy used to talk, didn't he, in the huddle, and sometimes you'd be walking around just...
Well, I could never sit still.
Yeah.
I had to be doing
Phil would be walking around, bouncing the ball around the outside of the huddle.
I just, I'm still like that today. I still have to be on the move, but I loved him because he would do end-to-end kicking with us, and he'd be jumping all over the top here, and he'd be trying to knock it out. He was great. And, I know. I don't see him a lot now, but I'm really disappointed for him because he was a good coach, and it would have been an absolute marvellous thing for him to come in his first year and us win the flag.
Of course, in coaching, the thing I remember about your coaching really in recent years is going across back home to South Australia and coaching Sturt, who had been on the bottom for umpteen years and hardly won a game for maybe 5 or 6 years. And you took on Sturt. A lot of people were surprised, and you got him into a grand final after they'd been really the dregs of the competition for so many years.
Yeah, I was very fortunate, Kevin, in that the profile that I had to be even given that responsibility. I was there 2 years as an assistant coach to Hayden Bunton Jr. And then the club was either going to fold or merge with another club for a couple of years. Anyway, I finally, nobody really wanted the job. They gave the job to me, and they finished 8 years on the bottom. My first year we didn't win a game, then we won 4 the second year, but then the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, we were in the finals. We played in a grand final, and it was a good period.
So you're still coaching? Is it Kangaroo Flat you're coaching?
Yes.
And what are you doing outside of that? Are you doing any other work?
Yes, well, I'm actually going into business with Steve, did you know?
Steve Edwards.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a business called Fabulous Sports and Memorabilia.
Okay.
And Steve has these real deal sports. Well? Yes, we are. It's just starting to move along pretty well.
Well, what are you asking your players when you said at times you weren't disciplined yourself under Tommy, as in you prepared yourself well but did some things outside maybe the team?
Absolutely not acceptable, Tony.
I thought that was coming up.
Yeah, I've gone to a club that's been on the bottom, and the only way you're going to get anywhere is to
set the scene.
Yeah, and fortunately, the clubs that I've been to have appreciated that and have done well.
We'll take a break. Phil Carman is our very special guest on Grumpy Old Men. Back with, well, as he says, one of the most controversial players ever to play the game. Welcome back to Grumpy Old Men, and Phil Carman, of course, is our very special guest. Phil, you've got a young boy. He's here today, and we might even see him walk on in a moment. Reece, does he play footy?
He does. He's 12, and he
might come and sit next to his dad.
Oh,
Stand next to his dad.
No, let the stand.
Oh, Reece.
Dougie's too big for him to sit on it. So
Come over here, mate.
Is he a budding player?
There he is.
Yeah, he's got some potential, and I can't convince him, Kevin, to train. He thinks that he wants to play footy. He wants to play AFL footy. He thinks it's just going to happen, and I have a bit of a problem encouraging him to actually.
What's wrong with that? You're not telling him to go to school and learn something, are you? I tried that with mine. No way known.
Now, we heard Bobby before, Bobby Skilton, speaking about today's game. What do you consider about today's game? Do you think we're taking the initiative of a player like you away from the game?
Yeah, possibly, but and it's also a little bit clinical. But it's still a wonderful sport.
Yeah,
and
we realise
before
that,
that it's not a tough game. I think that it's a pretty tough game today. You've got to be really fit and aggressive, and to be in those packs all the time. I'm a little bit disappointed in that sometimes it becomes a bit wide open. There's a bit too much space, but
Fellas seem to be going down the ground. Everything's in front of them, and suddenly something clicks, and the fella said, "Well, if I make a mistake putting this ball in the wrong position, whoosh, I'm off because I'm not adhering to the team's play." And they go backwards over to the left or somewhere where it is open.
yeah, some games.
Would you do that, Philip? No.
No.
Straight ahead.
Well, I watched the Collingwood and Brisbane the other evening. That's just a sensational game of footy, wasn't it? You're going to get a lot of games like that. You'll get some that are not so good, but as I said, it's a marvellous game and probably a little clinical at times.
What about the classic one-on-ones? And what player did you have the hardest trouble with when you played the game?
Look, I played on most consistently Francis Burke and Bruce Dool.
Who would be as tall? Francis wouldn't be as tall.
Well, Francis actually was as tall as me. And he would be the most difficult. Every time I played Richmond, he wouldn't talk to me. I couldn't distract him, and he was always there.
He's pretty single-minded.
And he was always there. And Brucey Dool,
the same.
And Jeff Southby, you're wonderful players.
Who's the best player, Phil? Who are the best players going around, in your opinion?
Today?
No, well, back those days and even maybe today.
Oh, there are a lot of good players. I love the way Len Thompson played, you know, for the size of the man, and how athletic he was. But in each side, you know, some of those guys I mentioned were good, but there were a lot of them.
Actually, Phil, I played in that game, the Victorian game out at Waverley, when you hurt your foot. And that year, of course, I think you missed 9 games and came third in the Brownlow medal.
Yes.
I mean, that was a fantastic year. It must have been so frustrating for you to miss those last 9 games, knowing that you were dominating the competition, playing for Victoria. I don't know, someone must have stood on your foot or did something. I mean, when you look back now, I mean, the Brownlow medal just would have been something special for Phil Carman.
Yeah, again, I mentioned before about grand finals. I sit with my wife and we watch the Brownlow night, and you think, goodness me, you know, wouldn't it be nice to be all dressed up and there? But yeah, somebody did tread on my foot just before half time. I went off, Kevin, at half time, and they said, look, there's a problem with your foot. And but what happened? Everybody left and went outside, and no doctor or trainer stayed with me. Fortunately, a couple of Collingwood supporters came in and they drove me to hospital. Wouldn't happen today, would it? So, I left them there. Yeah.
Phil, thanks for joining us on Grumpy Old Men. It's been fantastic to catch up with one of the greats, and also young boy Reece coming in all the way down from Bendigo. Let's hope that he can follow in the great footsteps of his father. And thanks for joining us tonight. And next week, we'll look back and have more on Grumpy Old Men as we look back to the good old days of AFL football.